Hello and welcome back to the Simplifiers podcast, where we take topics in work and life and simplify them. And friends, we're going to be focused a little bit more on the life side. And I've said it once, I'll say it a million times. When the life side's a little bit of a hot mess express, the answer, of course, is that it affects the other side, the work life, the 9 to 5 and the career that you've created for yourself. So in that, equally, we must spend time in both sides and simplify. Now, here's another thing I know. A lot of you guys are listening, are like me. You're in your early 40s. You might even be in your mid or late 40s. And no one told us about perimenopause. No one told us about menopause and what actually happens. And this, my friends, is what I want to simplify today. How to recalibrate your hormones, and I hate to say it, but it really comes down to it. Like, lose this crazy belly fat that might be right around your midsections right now, specifically when you're in your 40s. So I had to find the right guest, and this is her. Her name is Laurie Lewis, and she is an intermittent fasting coach and author. She knows a thing or two about menopause, the brain fog, lack of balance, memory loss, and guess what? She also had a sudden gain of 50 pounds of stubborn hormonal fat. Now, her story we will dive deep into, but one day she stumbled upon intermittent fasting and started fasting that very same day. The fog lifted in less than a week. She had more energy, felt more like herself, lost 51 pounds in 15 months, and has kept it off for years. She's now a certified health coach for the Institute of Integrative Nutrition, and she combines her knowledge of nutrition with deep research and practice of time-restricted eating. So I'd like to welcome to the Simplifiers podcast, Laurie Lewis. Hey, Laurie.
Hi, Mary. So great to be with you. Thank you.
I'm so glad you're here. And, it's kind of a vulnerable topic to talk about, at least maybe for me. I'm 43 at the time of this recording. I feel like there's this big, scary thing coming down the pike, and no one is telling me about it, and that being perimenopause and menopause afterwards. Like, why is no one talking about this?
I don't know. Throughout human history, people have kept it hush-hush. It wasn't until the early 1800s that it even had a name. And up until then, people just had colloquialisms for it, like, the woman's angry time, or, it's just like...
Oh my gosh.
A time of great confusion and agony. And so it is a mystery to me. They don't send us to biology class for older women.
No.
And we don't talk about it with each other very much. And when we speak about it with our physicians, they usually just tell us to toughen up.
Yeah.
And even when we ask for a full hormonal panel, they say, why? There's no need. You're just in perimenopause. You're just in menopause. Why do you need the information? You have to beg our doctors for the numbers. So not all doctors, of course, but I've coached thousands of people, mostly women, myself included, and we need the information. And then we need to know what to do about it.
Well, and this is the thing, like, our bodies, let's just say this for the record, are magic. The fact that we can create and form a human living being and then somehow birth it out of us and survive, like, that is miracles, 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 right? And so just the same magic and miracles that happens in, creating a human life is what's going on in this phase as well. Like, why not talk about this? Like, the shop's closing up. It's
right.
changing,
we
right?
have to be quiet about something that is so extraordinary. I'm really approaching this as the second half of my life. Like, up until 50, I got 50 more. Why not?
Yeah.
And we deserve a crown, a gold medal, a shining fireworks display for what this transition time can mean to us physically, emotionally, cognitively, spiritually. Mm-hmm. And let's do it together. Let's talk about it. Let's not whisper the word menopause. That makes no sense to me. Yeah. It's like, why are we whispering menopause? Like, it's shameful or embarrassing, or men shouldn't hear about it. Every man I know has women in his life, whether it's their mother or their sister or their boss or their neighbor or their friend or their spouse. And I would think everybody would be interested in knowing what we're experiencing, especially our doctors.
Yeah, it's crazy. And
Yeah.
if you don't mind, I'd like to read a little bit from your recent workbook. This is on page number 9. You say this: nothing worked to turn it around. And needless to say, I was determined. I used all of my nutrition training and old weight loss tricks, from running to juice fasts, from low carb programs to eliminating food that sparked a hormonal response. Little did I know, all foods elicit hormonal responses, and all my old tricks were not going to work. I had a lot to learn. People in my life were baffled. How could you gain so much weight? You're the healthiest person I know. I reached a point of utter hopelessness. Despondent is just about the right description, and on the onset of a long visit home to my mother, she lovingly encouraged that we use this time to turn the weight around. Ugh. God, that just
Ouch.
hurt my heart when I read that.
I know.
Why do you think she said that?
Well, she passed this year, but I have the most amazing mom. And you can tell the second part of the story is her listening, her prayers, and her support. But she is a good, caring mom, and she could see that I was suffering. And in her world, she was just like, let's just tighten up your eating. Let's just get you out running some more. And I'm like, those words, what my mom used to always say too when I would come home. And we can't stand hearing these things from our moms. Mom-daughter relationships can be complicated. But she would always comment on my hair. She would say, "Can we talk about your hair?" I'm like, "No, we can't talk about my hair."
Yes.
No.
Yeah.
But then for her to say, let's just use this time to turn the weight around was really tough, because it implied to my daughter ears that I hadn't been trying.
Yeah.
So I wailed and cried like a 5-year-old having a tantrum. And I just listed everything that I'd tried for 4.5 years and how awful I felt, and nothing was working. And it wasn't that easy. And I just about given up, like, maybe it's true that it does get all downhill from here. Like, I'm supposed to just resign to it gets foggier, heavier, more confusion, like worse forever, more medication forever.
No.
No.
Hard no.
Right. Now, there is an assumption, which is icky, that women of a certain age who do gain weight have kind of let themselves go, which made it compounded the suffering, because I was like, I didn't, air quotes, let myself go. Like, it just happened to me. And when it happens, it is indescribable. It's like being taken over by an alien or something, and you feel like not like yourself. It's disorienting. And for sure, this doesn't happen to this degree to every woman.
Yeah.
So there isn't some set pattern. There's a list. But then certain things happen to different people and in different times. Like in perimenopause, it took my brother saying to me, because there was a long period where I just had a hard time getting out of bed. And my cover's over the head, and he said, I wasn't returning people's calls, and I wasn't myself.
Yeah.
And he said, "Isn't depression part of menopause?" And I was like, I don't know. How do you know that?
Yeah. Yeah. So let's talk about some of those early warning signs that you might be moving into perimenopausal, which of course is the beginning part, right? To menopause, which is like the fabulous part 2. So talk to me some of the symptoms people might experience.
Well, I have the title of my book, the subtitle is Intermittent Fasting for Women, 44 to Forever. And I picked 44 because that's the age that I woke up in the middle of the night and I was sweating up a storm in my brain. The first thought I had was, oh my air conditioner is broken. Well, the air conditioner was not broken. My hormones were whacked. That was the beginning, right? So I think that what a woman can do is late 30s, early 40s, just know it's coming. Like when we're 10 or 11, we know we're going to get a period. For the most part, if we had adults who taught us, right, what's happening. But adults do teach girls about that their puberty and their periods are coming and what to do about it, right? For the most part. And so if we know it's coming, if we've read a list of symptoms.
Yep.
I know it's no fun to, oh my gosh, all the vaginal dryness,
And so much more. Yeah.
Oh boy, I think I'd like to keep my ears covered and not know those things.
Yeah.
But come on, let's be adults and look at the list and talk with our friends. And so when forgetfulness strikes, when you feel wobbly, when you feel more fatigued and lethargic, or depression kicks in, or you forget we're all forgetful, right? We don't remember everything, but there is an increase in forgetfulness. Like, where did I park my car? What's my address? I mean, things that you're like, uh-oh.
Yeah.
And so I do think it's important to talk to our friends and talk to each other. And I remember saying to colleagues around me, like, I'm really not myself. Now, I don't think that's unprofessional. I think that's being responsible.
Yeah.
I'm forgetting things more. So I'm trying to put structures in to mitigate that. But, and I also have learned in my own experience and with my friends and now my clients that because we in our society, and especially as women, have been under so much stress and so much pressure for so long, sleep deprived, eating ultra processed food and refined sugar, eating on the go, never sitting down, never pausing. Late 40s is when our body is about to hit this big hormonal shift, menopause. And in many other areas of health, the body is like, time out. I can't take it anymore. And so perhaps in your life, Mary, you know of women who in their 40s, late 40s, early 50s suddenly have Hashimoto's or a thyroid issue or other autoimmune or chronic fatigue or adrenal fatigue. And so it's such an important turning point that I love when women in their late 30s and 40s are like, oh, this is an important time to really start taking great care of my body. And things that we could do in our 20s and 30s, we probably shouldn't be drinking coffee all day long anymore. We could probably curtail the alcohol. We could probably treat sugar as a special treat, not an everyday thing. There are things that we know to do. Now's the time to do them.
So, and I really appreciate what you said there of talking to your good girlfriends or colleagues even, and just going like, hey, are you seeing like shorter menstrual cycles? Are you experiencing joint pain? Some of the other symptoms you had listed in the workbook were like frozen shoulder or incontinence, irritability, dry hair, brittle fingernails, any of these things that might be popping up that are like, that's weird. That's new. I don't remember having that. But having that conversation with other people makes it a safer space to like go, oh yeah, me too. And you go, oh, I'm not doing this by myself. Like we're all in this together. Let's figure out some solutions or a coach or a workbook or otherwise that can really help us shed light on what in the world's going on here, right?
Yeah, solidarity and communication, and then getting information and finding out what others are experiencing. So many women are in their mid 40s and they're like, oh, I skipped a period. Or a lot of women haven't had their period in forever. So they're like, I don't know, right? But it's upsetting if someone skips a period, of course. And I'm like, wait, well, how old are you? You're 47. Well, that would be normal.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm surprised that doctors that when you hit 40, that there's a whole series of information that a physician would provide. And I'll say to clients who are 47, 48, when did you have your last lab work? And they'll say last year. And I'm like, well, did your doctor talk to you about perimenopause and menopause? And they're like, no.
Yeah. It's crazy.
What were you going to ask? I'm sorry, I interrupted.
Yeah, no, I think it is absolutely bonkers. And again, while you're here, like this is it. This is our chance to really simplify it down and help guide women all around the world to, have a vocabulary, if you will, to ask the right questions when they go see their doctor next. So talk to us about the hormonal shift, the exact thing that's happening in your 40s and 50s. Like it's specifically your estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone, right? What's going on there?
Right. That's right. So up until you move into perimenopause, you're premenopausal. So basically every woman most women before their late 30s or early 40s, pre-menopausal, no signs of menopause. Then you shift into perimenopause, which is really at the end of our eggs. When we're a tiny little baby in our body, we get all the eggs we're ever going to get. Men are the opposite. They just keep making sperm. We have a limited number.
Yeah.
And so when we go into perimenopause is when the body is like, oh yeah, we're starting this shift. And that can be anywhere from 3 years to 15 years. Yay. And so, yes, as you said, it is a combination of shifting between estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone. It's closely linked to cortisol and to insulin. So we have over 80 hormones. So when people say my hormones are whacked out, they usually mean estrogen and progesterone, but we have over 80 hormones they're little chemical messengers in a network, a hierarchy of communication. They all have their own jobs, and some are more important than others, like insulin and cortisol. But then there's oxytocin, which has us feel lovey, warm, happy feelings and connections with people or pets. So in perimenopause and then menopause, when our ovaries are cranking out fewer and fewer eggs, estrogen and progesterone and testosterone start to flip and shift. And requesting from our physicians the hormone panel, and then looking at those numbers and comparing them to what normal should be, and then working with a physician on bioidentical hormones or hormone replacement therapy. Everybody has different opinions about that. So each person really needs to research for themselves what it means and what their doctors recommend. And then, like I said, it's time to look at eating in an eating window, which is intermittent fasting, like keeping insulin low, keeping cortisol low, tapping into our fat stores, getting high energy of eating in a consolidated time frame, which matches the design of human beings, especially as we age. Throughout human history, that we have had periods of food and no food and food and no food. So keeping insulin low, tapping into our fat stores, eating in an eating window is especially important and helpful for a woman over 40.
So there's so much there. Let's pause and unpack what you just said there. Because I think it's really important. Side note, if you are listening to us right now, at any point you can press pause in your podcast player, and go to our show notes over at the simplifierspodcast.com. So everything that Laurie is talking about, you can find links and resources right there, how to get to her website, find the books, all the things. So don't panic, because you said a lot of really technical medical terms there, and I just want to make sure to put that in there as a pause. You talked about bioidentical hormones. Was that it? Did I catch that right? What is that specifically?
They are compounded hormones that are made in a lab. And depending on the country you're from, people in the UK tend to prefer hormone replacement therapy. People in the US it's controversial and it's confusing. And so again, this is something to talk to your doctor, to do a lot of research and talk to your friends. And there are creams and there are pellets and there's so many different ways to take hormones. And the regulations are different from country to country, and the preferences seem to be different from country to country. The quality is different from country to country. But the
bottom line is to stabilize things, right? Like to take
Correct.
Hormone therapy is to stabilize what's going on with these symptoms, correct?
Yes. One of the concerns I have is when people are recommending hormonal creams without even having their hormone levels tested. So if someone's like, oh, take this progesterone cream, it's working for me. Well, why would I rub hormone cream on my body if I don't need progesterone? So you want to demand, just a tip, if you request from your physician to have certain lab work done and they refuse, or they say why, and you answer it, and they refuse, you should say, okay, would you please put that in my file that I asked for that and you refused.
Interesting.
And then go somewhere else. Go to Everlywell or go to some of these online, get the tests. But be sure to ask your doctor. So then you get the results back. And so I was saying that I'm concerned that people are just taking hormones without knowing what their levels actually are. It's very delicate. And that's why I think that food and movement and sleep and fasting, and I call it reflection time, whether it's prayer or meditation or journaling or walking in nature, all of these things are so important right now, especially now at this pivotal time in a woman's life, to take really good care of ourselves. And fasting's part of that.
So I definitely want to take a deep dive into what intermittent fasting is and how it works and all the things. But before we go there, I just have to share a quick little story. So 43 right now, 4 years ago, I started to go, my body's changing. What used to work doesn't work anymore. I'm just going to be more conscious about the food I eat, the working out in the gym, all the things. And when I made that conscious choice 4 years ago, I was like, right, I'm going to work out an hour and a half every day in the gym. I'm going to be pumping, iron. I'm going to hire a personal trainer. And, it was fun. I enjoyed working with him and he was great. But I literally, like the belly fat in particular, like my waist was exactly the same. And I was working out more than ever before. Like, what's that about? Hormones, right?
Okay. It is, 100% hormones. All weight loss is hormonal. So I know I'm going to steer us off and we can come back, but the old calories in, calories out theory is broken. It's flawed. It never worked. We think it makes sense. Like if I reduce this and reduce this, then I'll get skinnier.
Yep.
It doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
Clearly, we have an obesity epidemic and a type 2 diabetes and other metabolic disorders. So the belly fat really is the shift of estrogen and progesterone. It's cortisol. So working out intensely is raising cortisol. It's stress. Okay, right? So stress and cortisol and insulin and eating all the time and eating refined sugars and ultra processed foods that our body, it really gets to the point where it's like, I've been cramming this not food in for way too long.
Yeah.
The body doesn't know what to do with those ultra processed foods. It's storing the toxins in our fat cells and it's done. It's like, I'm done. I can't take it anymore.
Yeah.
So the belly fat is really the thing for men and women, but especially women around perimenopause and menopause. And it just feels like it won't ever shift, and it will.
So I know we're going to talk about the fasting part, but just to answer the question, what's better when it comes to exercise? Is it high intensity work that's short spurts? Is it doing yoga or just simply committing to moving your body 30 minutes every day? What do you think is the best?
Walking is the most important thing. I mean, sure, stand up more often, set an alarm and stand up and walk around your house or walk out in the yard, but just standing up as often as you can. You don't need to build a fancy desk. People stop themselves from doing things that are very simple because they overcomplicate it. Like, I need to buy all this stuff to be able to do this thing. No, you don't. Start walking. Okay? I have clients who have been taking their blood sugar after eating, and when you take a walk, your blood sugar comes down. It's truly just walk. Okay. Yeah. Then the next thing would be a gentle stretching like yoga, hit exercises like bursts. Like you don't need to work out for an hour and a half. Just pick up heavy things and do bursts of energy. And if you're someone who doesn't like to exercise, think about the movement that you enjoy, that you could schedule with a friend, or that you could make it. It's like your favorite podcast you're going to put in and you're going to listen every day or every week when your favorite podcast drops. You're going to walk for 45 minutes and listen to it. Like walking.
I love it. Great. Okay. So let's talk about intermittent fasting. What is it and why might it be the right solution for those looking to recalibrate their hormones?
So what it is eating in a pattern of time. The pattern isn't as important. What's important is to recognize that this way of eating or living has integrity. What I mean by integrity is not morality. What I mean is it works. It's aligned with. It matches the design of the human body to have food and not have food, and have food and not have food. But the reason we measure by the clock in our society and with intermittent fasting, why it has a name, and it seems like a thing you're doing, is because we have food around us all the time, which is not how it was for our ancestors. The time in recorded history when people had the increased longevity was during the Great Depression. There wasn't a lot of food. People ate one meal a day and they lived longer. Okay. So, if we can consolidate our time of eating, which does include some structure, it includes some practice, because again, food is around all the time and people are eating all the time. We're eating from boredom. We're eating to comfort ourselves. Yeah. We're eating when we feel stressed. We're eating when we're joyful. We're eating when we're crying. We're eating when we're mad. We're eating when we're bored. And we're eating all the time. Yep. And so if we can ease in and create a structure, I love people to just take the 24-hour day, divide it in two parts, the fasting part and the eating part. And it can be 12-12. You can, with a 12-hour fast and a 12-hour eating window, do something radical. Have 3 separate meals in 12 hours. Shrink it to 10, shrink it to 8. And what's important about the fasting, and you can find everything on the internet, okay? Anything, any corner you want to cut, you can find a reason for it, right? But sure. I practice, and I coach what we call the clean fast. It's very simple. No cutting corners, no adding fun flavors. Save the flavors for your eating window. Fast clean. And what it is plain, unflavored water. Plain, unflavored black coffee. Plain, unflavored, bitter, black or green tea. So you have to look at the ingredients. Mm-hmm. Oh, there's bergamot flavoring in here, or there's jasmine in here. Okay, no, plain black or green tea, plain unflavored electrolytes. It's really important to get magnesium and sodium in, and your medications as prescribed by your physician or your pharmacist. So plain water, plain coffee, plain bitter tea, plain electrolytes, and medications. That's the clean fast.
And just to pause there. So that's obviously that's 24 hours, right? Or is that just during the 12 hours that you're not eating solid food?
During your fasting hours.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah. So you get to say if you're going to fast 12 hours, 14, 16, 20, 22. So you get to say what your fasting hours are. A lot of people love to race straight out of the chutes, and we know what happens when people go too hard, too fast. Right. It's like they peter out, right? So go gradually. This is not meant to be a hardship. Fasting, in my experience and my personal experience in coaching people, is it's not a diet. It's a quiet. It's peaceful and gentle. It's not stressful. It's not a hard push. You'll start to listen to what your body needs. And people are like, I don't know what that means. If I listen to what my body needs, I'm having ice cream and eating all the time. It's like, okay. So you'll get to the point where when you do that consistently, that fasting clean, and then eating in an eating window, eat normally, don't diet, don't calorie restrict, but also don't go overboard. Like, come on, right? Yeah. Eat normally in your eating window. You will discover somewhere between 2 and 4 weeks that you've never felt better.
So I'm thinking about just my own life. 4 years ago, I was trying to power through and work out more, and that's the answer to losing weight. And now I've shifted a lot since then. And pretty much I am kind of doing this intermittent fasting thing, but probably not even aware of it. So I drink my coffee black. I drink a lot of water during the day. I don't drink sodas and all the stuff. I wake up at about 6 a.m. in the morning and I go to bed about 9 o'clock at night, but I probably stop eating about 7 or 8. So I'm kind of doing it now, right?
Yeah, Mary, I love it when people say that, because then it gives me an opportunity to let's dig in and let's make absolutely sure, so I was working with someone recently and they were like, I'm putting collagen in my coffee in the morning. I'm like, okay, well, that's protein. Mm-hmm. And that stops this amazing process called autophagy, this deep cellular repair that we want. We're not only fasting to keep insulin low and tap into our fat stores and get into ketosis and fuel our brain on ketones, but we're fasting to raise human growth hormone, which builds our muscles and our bone density. And we're fasting to get this deep cellular repair called autophagy. So I want to investigate, like, when you close your eating window at 7, so you think like, yeah, I generally, well, now you want to start noticing. Close it at 7, right?
Yep.
And then after that, you drink plain water. For a lot of people, that means a big habit change. You're sitting there watching Netflix. What are you doing with yourself if you're
glass
not
of wine.
eating more, right? So again, people are like, well, I would rather have my eating window be later and enjoy that glass of wine late. Great. It's totally customized for you. There isn't one best right time, and it'll probably change over time.
Yeah.
But for you, you close that eating window at 7, you go to bed at 9. Congratulations, by the way. That's so good for you. So good for you that you go to bed early like that. Oh, it will help you in the future for sure.
Yeah.
So then you wake up in the morning around 6 and drink plain water, drink black coffee. Don't put anything in your water. And when do you eat first?
For me, probably about 7 or so. Yeah.
Yeah, really good. So that's 12 hours.
Yeah.
Maybe tomorrow you'll eat at 8.
Well, and I think that's it. Like, I think we just overcomplicate, like, oh God, you hear the word fast and you go, oh, I'm going to be starving and it's going to be this
terrible word.
Deprivation.
We need to think of another one.
Yeah, like all of the things. But then when you actually look at your normal schedule now, like press pause on your podcast player right now and actually think about it. Like, oh, actually, I'm kind of already there because I'm sleeping through the majority of the fast itself, right?
Yes, you're sleeping for a big chunk of it. And then, the objections are around the black coffee. That's really hard for some people. So there's some tricks on how it can be not so bad. One thing to know is our taste buds completely regenerate themselves in 2 weeks. In 2 weeks, you'll have all new taste buds.
Yeah.
So if you can suffer with it, you can put it on ice, or you can make it extra hot. You can make it super weak, or you can make it super strong and choke it back. You can put a little Himalayan salt in the grounds and it cuts the bitterness. There are loads of tricks. Bottom line, if you need a hit of caffeine and you like coffee and you need it in the morning, just suck it up and get it done. And then you can have, I call it candy coffee. You can have your creamy sweet candy coffee when you open your eating window.
And do you know what's interesting about that, Laurie, is that I used to be the person that drank the candy coffee with lots of creamer and 1 or 2 scoops of sugar in it, right? But when I made the shift to take all of that out of my coffee and just go black, it wasn't a night and day thing. I mean, I slowly graduated to, made the coffee darker and darker, less creamer, over time. But then, as you say, like my taste buds totally changed. So I have no craving towards the sweet, coffees at all, because it just tastes just chemically.
I know.
That's the best way to put it. Like, it tastes chemically to me now, where actually I am so excited when the first cup of coffee comes around. Like, I'm just like, this is it. This is the flavor I want. So maybe that's encouraging to anyone that's listening to us. Like, you think you need the double, triple, frappa, whatever. But actually, like you say, there's promise. Your taste buds do change.
Well, intermittent fasting helps your budget too, because we are addicted to that creamer. And if you can overcome it, it is very chemically. Yeah. And, to go into your favorite coffee shop and just order a black coffee, it sure costs a lot less than the fancy things. Yeah. And so you can move that eating window, just inch it a little later. And of course, people are like, well, I work out in the morning, or I, get to work and I have to be a high performer very quick, straight out of the chutes. I can't be dragging at work. Right. And within a few weeks, people realize they have more energy, they're clearer, they're brighter, they're sharper, more focused, more productive. And just ease into your workouts. Make sure you have those electrolytes. Have a little snack with you just in case. If you feel really awful, you should eat. You didn't fail. You ate. You took care of yourself. Tomorrow's a new day. So whenever you eat, people are like, I went off the rails, or I had a bad day. No, you didn't. You just had a longer eating window today.
Absolutely. So I know in the workbook you talk about the 3 phases of intermittent fasting. Can you just give us a quick overview of those 3 phases?
Yes. So in my book, it's a workbook, and it's broken up in a few parts. So the first is fast foundation. So in the beginning, we're laying the foundation, the physiological information that you need to know, like why it's important, how to deal with naysayers. People will say, well, doesn't that ruin your metabolism? Or that doesn't sound safe. It's like,
Yeah.
well, all human beings have done this throughout all time. Of course it's safe. Even up until the 70s, we really only ate 3 meals a day, up until, I call it the snack generation, started in the 1980s, where we were told to eat snacks all the time. Up until the early 80s, we ate 2 or 3 meals a day. That was normal. So fast foundation. And this is where I set people up to have a notebook and a calendar, and to plan your meals to some degree, because the body loves anticipation, right? Let's say a hunger wave hits you at 10, and you're like, okay, what time is it? It's 10. All right. When am I eating? I'm eating at 12. What am I eating at 12? And you think, you might not know the whole meal, but at least you know some yummy things that you're eating.
Yeah.
That anticipation will calm your nervous system, and knowing, hey, I'm good. This is just a hunger wave. This is just a growling stomach. It doesn't mean anything. It's not an emergency. And you carry on. And then suddenly the 2 hours passed and you are eating later. So that anticipation is wonderful. And so in the fast foundation, period, and the adjustment period, this is where you're getting set up. And then the fast forward is like, let's start. Okay. Everybody should be able to start today. All you need is a glass of water and a clock and to know what you're going to eat later and be excited about it. And if you don't make it till that time, who cares? You made it as long as you made it. Yay, you. So that's fast forward. And it's just, here we go. We're not doing this thing like, here's how we start most things. We start most things like it's a thing that I can choose to stop anytime if I don't like the thing.
Yeah.
Like we're trying out a thing.
Yep.
Well, I liken fasting to sleep. So it would be weird if I called you one day and I'm like, Mary, I heard about this thing. I'm going to try it out. Here's what you do. You lie down, you close your eyes. And like 7 or 8 hours later, you open your eyes and you sit up and you feel better, like you feel refreshed. Do you want to try it with me? I'm going to try it. It's a thing. No, that's absurd. Sleep is imperative.
Yes.
Now, we don't get enough of it, but if you're getting, 5, 6, 7, 8 hours a night, you're sleeping enough. And so I liken fasting to sleep. It's imperative. It's not a thing you're doing to find out if it works for you. You can guarantee 100% it is working. When you're pausing from eating and you're fasting clean, you're giving your body a digestive, metabolic, and hormonal rest.
Yeah.
Your body is like, oh my gosh, we've been waiting for this forever. And people report, they're like, really within 2 weeks. First of all, they say it's not as hard as I thought it was going to be. And second, they say, okay, the fasting is easy. I feel really good. No problem. It's the eating window that's my problem. And that's when we shift focus. It's like you got the fasting handled, you're fasting clean, you feel great, you have good energy. Now let's shift to what you're eating. So that's the whole fast forward mindset and process. And then fast forever is, let's take a close look at your goals. What's important to you? Are you chipping away at those triglycerides? Are you increasing your strength? Is your waistline shrinking and becoming more normalized? Not carrying around excess body fat. The body fat's there. It's a fuel source. It's there to be tapped into. And so this idea and approach of, oh, this isn't a thing I'm testing out. This is the way my body's designed. And how can I keep this going with life, with vacations, with work, with family, with challenges, with emotions? How do I keep this going? And that's the fast forever.
Thank you so much for simplifying that down. And if you guys are curious about what Laurie is talking about here, I highly recommend checking out her workbook. It's called Celebrating Your Vibrant Future, Intermittent Fasting for Women 44 to Forever. It's co-written with Kim Smith, and it is an absolute freedom book that gives you a roadmap. It gives you a plan to follow to help you try this and see if it delivers results, if it changes the symptoms you're feeling. It changes your life. So I highly recommend checking that out. You can find that online at Amazon or wherever books are sold. Also, her website is fastforwardwellness.com. Now, Laurie, I have a few questions as we wrap up. And thank you again. You're such a breath of fresh air and so much knowledge here. So I really love having this conversation with you. So tell me, what's one book or blog you're reading these days that's either inspiring you or poking holes and challenging your belief system?
Well, in all of my reading, I love fiction. I love reading science and about how the body works. And I love motivation and inspiration and spiritual ideas. Yeah. And so the book that I'm excited about that I just got is, and I'm a big Martha Beck fan, is called The Way of Integrity, Finding the Path to Your True Self. And I really incorporate these ideas in my coaching because I believe, and I've experienced for myself and witnessed in others, that fasting can really be a spiritual awakening and spiritual practice. There's a reason that all meditation, religion, and spiritual traditions include fasting because it quiets our thought. And in that quiet, people get to know themselves more clearly.
Beautiful.
And it's beautiful. So I'm excited to dig into Martha Beck's new book.
Great. So if you guys are curious about that book, again, you can find it over at the show notes. We'll link it up there for you, thesimplifierspodcast.com. So tell me, who's one person in your network, somebody that you know personally, you just feel is up to brilliant things? We could shine a spotlight on them, and who knows, maybe one day we'll have them on the podcast.
Oh, okay. So my close friend and client, Misha Rubin, he now has started up his own coaching and programs. It's called the Deep Leap. And he has created and designed, in this quiet of COVID. Well, he has 3 kids, so I don't know how quiet it was. But this shift of COVID time, when our time out, where he's created this methodology to have people who are successful and mid-career who are like, this is not satisfying. This is not my calling. This is not doing it for me. To have this transformational program to discover a self-discovery of what is possible now. And it's so inspiring.
I love it. Well, we will link Misha up in the show notes as well. If you guys are curious about what he's up to, you can click over there and check it out. So you can also find in the show notes Laurie's social media handles and all things, but I really encourage you to go over to her website. Again, that website is fastforwardwellness.com, and you can actually download a free checklist on how to actually begin intermittent fasting. So you don't have to figure this out all on your own. Just go to the website, click and download the checklist, and you are well on your way to learning and simplifying. And I think that's it. The bottom line is that intermittent fasting, it sounds, and I'm already kind of doing it and I didn't even know, but it's truly about simplifying your life, your routine, your grocery list, your everything, right?
100%. There are 2 parts to every day, the fasting part and the eating part. Yeah. Keep it simple. Don't overcomplicate it. Eat and fast. And the fasting doesn't feel like a deprivation. Yeah. It feels like a really nurturing time where we're brighter and sharper and feel like we're flourishing.
So I believe gratitude and simplicity go hand in hand. Tell me, what's one thing you're grateful for today?
Oh my gosh, my heart is always so full with gratitude. What am I grateful for today? I started a new group program today. So I teach live on Zoom, and I'm really grateful for the courage and the courage that people have and the trust that they've given me. Yes. And I don't take that lightly. It fills me up.
I love it. Fastforwardwellness.com is the website. My last question for you today is this. Someone somewhere is listening to us right now, and she has experienced a good chunk of all those symptoms that we talked about at the beginning. She is in this a bliss of like, what is this? And really on the cusp of understanding what's happening, the changes in her body. What's one thing you could whisper into her ear right now just to encourage her in this moment?
So the first sentence in my book is, this book is a hug. So this conversation is a hug. You are not alone. I know it sounds too good to be true. Like, really? I just eat in an eating window and I'll feel better? It sounds too good to be true because it is what we should be doing for ourselves. So this is a gift. Eat in an eating window. I got you. You're going to be okay.
Laurie, big love to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mary.